Hello, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I give my commentary on national and world news and politics. This is definitely a world gone mad. And if you're listening to this podcast, then you are part of the resistance. And I welcome you. Okay, let's get right to the heart of things. FBI director says Wisconsin judge arrested for allegedly obstructing ICE. The Federal Bureau of Investigation arrested a Milwaukee County Circuit judge Friday, FBI Director Kash Patel said on social media, accusing her of helping an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest. Judge Hannah Dugan is facing 2 charges for obstruction and concealing the individual from arrest, a law enforcement official told CNN. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest. Patel's post read before it was quickly deleted. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since. But the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public. Dugan is in federal custody as she awaits an initial court appearance, the law enforcement official said. Now, Brady McCarran, a spokesperson for the U.S. Marshals Service, confirmed to CNN that Dugan was arrested at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time Friday on local courthouse grounds where she works. She was then processed by the Federal Marshals Service. She is expected to appear before a federal judge in the Eastern District of Wisconsin. An arrest warrant and criminal complaint are not yet publicly available. The arrest on federal charges is an escalation in the Trump administration focus on judges' conduct, particularly as it relates to immigration enforcement. Now, the Justice Department has repeatedly asserted that it will investigate any local officials who do not assist federal authorities on immigration matters. Agents with Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrived at the court last week, went immediately to Dugan's courtroom, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported. Now, the Journal-Sentinel cited an email from Chief Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Carl Ashley, which said that they were asked whether they had a warrant, and the agents presented the warrant as well as their identification. The chief judge wrote that the ICE agents were told to wait until the court hearing had concluded. Eduardo Flores Ruiz was arrested on a federal criminal complaint earlier this week after he allegedly fled from Dugan's courthouse when federal immigration authorities were planning to arrest him days earlier. Now, court documents indicate that Flores Ruiz learned that ICE agents were there to arrest him and fled the building. The agents confronted him outside the courthouse, where he ran away, but was soon apprehended a short distance away. Flores Ruiz has not yet entered a plea and is being detained, according to his federal court record. Now, this would be a separate case from the alleged charge against Judge Dugan. What the hell? Donald Trump is going after judges again, and in this case with an arrest. When does this stop? When does this blatant misuse of power end? I'm trying to figure out why this judge was arrested and what law she broke. Total abuse of power from Donald Trump, Kash Patel, et al., all the minions sucking up to Donald and doing things that a normal country, a democratic country, wouldn't do. Trump officials discussed making it much harder to qualify for federal disaster assistance starting this hurricane season. Trump emergency management officials are discussing reforms that would make it much harder for communities to qualify for federal disaster assistance, honoring President Donald Trump's executive order to shift more responsibility for disaster response and recovery to states rather than the federal government. Now, a memo from acting FEMA Administrator Cameron Hamilton, a Trump appointee, obtained by CNN, outlines a long list of recommendations for Trump to follow that could drastically reduce the number of emergency declarations the president approves and the amount of federal assistance doled out to cities and states hit by natural disasters. Such a change, ahead of what are typically the worst months for natural disasters across the U.S. could pose significant problems for states that are unprepared to foot the bill and for the millions of Americans impacted by disasters every year. Most notably, the memo sent to an official with the White House Office of Management and Budget proposes dramatically raising the threshold for states to qualify for public assistance, effectively quadrupling the amount of damage a community must suffer in order to receive federal aid. The proposal also recommends reducing the share of recovery costs the federal government will pay, limiting the types of facilities eligible for assistance, and denying all major disaster declarations for snowstorms. The primary purpose of this memorandum is to identify short-term actions to rebalance FEMA's role in disasters before the start of the 2025 hurricane season. Hamilton writes in the memo, which is part of the administration's ongoing effort to dramatically shrink the disaster relief agency's footprint and cut federal costs for disasters. At this point, there's no clear indication that FEMA or the White House are following the recommendations outlined in Hamilton's proposal. Now, CNN has reached out to the White House Office of Management and Budget and FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees FEMA, for comment. Now, while the effort to reduce the burden on the federal government is not without its supporters, some worry that the proposed changes are too much, too soon. It is going in a direction that it needs to go? Yeah, I think so. But going there immediately is going to be very painful. Former FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate, who served under the Obama administration, said of the proposed changes. Trump and his allies have criticized FEMA for months as ineffective and unnecessary. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, whose department oversees FEMA, has vowed to eliminate the agency. Fugate, the former FEMA administrator, hopes the proposal sparks a bipartisan conversation about reforming the agency rather than dismantling it. This would be pretty drastic, but maybe it will start a more meaningful discussion on the policy side, Fugate said of the proposal. What is the proper balance between you as a federal taxpayer subsidizing states that are building in high-hazard coastal areas that are profiting from that development, but you're basically their insurance policy? This is unbelievable. Again, Trump wants to dismantle agencies that are important, basically gut them to the core. Trump was right when he said the enemy within, and the enemy within is him and his minions. Totally disgusting. Former Representative George Santos, sentenced to 87 months for federal fraud charges. Remember him? Disgraced former Representative George Santos was sentenced Friday to 87 months in prison for aggravated identity theft, wire fraud charges stemming from fraudulent activity during his 2022 midterm campaign. The judge ruled he must surrender by July 25th. The sentencing marks a downfall for the former New York Republican congressman who pleaded guilty in August. At the time, he was also ordered to pay restitution of $373,000 as part of the agreement. The Justice Department sought more than 7-year prison sentence for Santos, while he asked the court for the minimum sentence of 2 years. Santos, who represented parts of Long Island and Queens during his brief and scandal-plagued tenure in Congress, was expelled from the House in late 2023 after the House Ethics Committee released a report of additional uncharged and unlawful conduct by Santos. Beyond the report, he had sparked shock and controversy, if you recall, on Capitol Hill over revelations that he fabricated large parts of his life story and was also facing nearly 24 federal charges, including allegations of fraud related to COVID-19 unemployment benefits, misusing campaign funds, lying about his personal finances on House disclosure reports. The embattled former lawmaker survived previous attempts to remove him from office and originally pleaded not guilty to the charges in 2023. He attempted to run in another New York district as an independent last year before ending his congressional bid after roughly a month, and later pleaded guilty just weeks before the ex-congressman was set to stand trial on the federal charges. Freaking fantastic. This guy deserved what he got with this sentence. Another loon ball, like Marjorie Taylor loon ball. But you know, Donald will have to weigh in on this. It's coming. He will pardon Santos, I think, and that's a blatant disrespect for the rule of law. Zero surprise if Trump does this. If you have any comments on this, or anything in today's episode, or any feedback at all on the podcast, please say hello. Some of you are taking advantage of it. I appreciate that. I just wish more of you would chime in. You have the email, you have the phone number. You can reach me on Blue Sky. If you're not sure on my contact information, listen to a previous episode. Take a minute out of your day to send me a text, an email, a voice message. I'm not asking for a lot from you. I do like hearing from you, the listeners. Thank you in advance. And finally, thanks to the Good News Network again, here's an inspiring story I would like to share with you. A race car and an 83-year-old retired woman. What do they have in common? Well, some of her best childhood memories were filled with revving engines, spinning tires, and cheering crowds while her brother drag raced. But in those days, there were no driving opportunities for women. Yet, she vividly remembers the rush of adrenaline she felt while watching her brother racing cars. The one day she did have a chance to race was in a powder puff derby, especially for females. The event was rained out, and she never got the opportunity again, until now. At age 83, Bobbi Oxford's wish has finally come true. I have the need for speed, baby, she said from her senior living community in Littleton, Colorado, where she stays busy with sewing, quilting, and painting, leading a quiet life. Now, the devoted fan of NASCAR racing got to check off her bucket list item thanks to Wish of a Lifetime, a charity arm of AARP that grants life-changing wishes to inspire people to age with joy. Her dream was fulfilled at the Pikes Peak International Raceway in Colorado in a retired race car belonging to Joe Garone, the track's COO. Bobbi took to the track under a clear blue Colorado sky. Not a drop of rain this time would cut her experience short. When asked by CBS Sunday Morning how fast she wanted to go, she replied, "As fast as I can, maybe 130 miles per hour. After being fitted with a helmet and personalized racing suit, getting a tour of the garage, and completing an orientation on driving, Bobbi got behind the wheel with an experienced driver in the passenger seat, and she drove around the 1-mile oval track over and over. Just the sound of this motor and being behind this wheel," she exclaimed, "you step on the gas and you hear roar, I tell you." Along the sidelines, female race drivers of all ages cheered, "Go, Bobbi, go!" Friends from her senior community also attended, along with her son and daughter-in-law, waving handmade signs in support of Bobbi. And after she had her fill of driving around the track, a professional driver took her on the ride of her life, spinning in circles and burning rubber to give Bobbi the full experience she had missed all these years. "I made it," Bobbi called out as she completed her drive. "Nothing can ever top this. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would get in a race car, but I did." So, Wolfpack listeners, don't let your age, no matter what it is, no matter young, old, it doesn't matter. Don't let your age stop you from fulfilling your dreams. Life is too short. Grab every moment you can, no matter how large or small. I'll be back again Monday. This is A World Gone Mad. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf, and without your comments, your feedback, and your engagement, I'm sitting in a room, talking to myself, and feeling lonely. Stay hopeful.